Hi, in this video we'll verify that everything is working as expected on the Windows side from the perspective of our SQL Server DBA. So in the previous video we verified that the end user is unable to log in through the console on member 2 because the role that we defined does not allow it. So if you look at the properties of the role and we go into system rights, notice that console is not allowed. So all we need to do is launch terminal services session to this system. I'm going to go ahead and authenticate as that user, and as I log in, the first thing I need to find out is how do I know which roles and rights do I have. This computer does have the Centrify agent installed. Many of you have seen the other videos, saw that we can also launch an administrative desktop, but it's possible that especially if you're using a Windows Server 2012, that the administrative desktop is not available, or maybe you just want to be able to grant granular rights. A very common scenario is when you have an application that is business critical, but it was poorly written. It may require access to certain pieces of the registry or certain pieces of the file system that only administrators can do it. So at that point, you may have a large population of users being local administrators just because of that app. So the Centrify tray allows us to open what is called the Authorization Center. And notice that the Authorization Center right away shows a lot of information. So, shows you the zone, the user. Notice that I'm not permitted to log in through the console, only remotely, in this case through RDP. These are the roles that I have, and one is, in this case, is active. If I have multiple roles in different places, but it's possible that they may not be active. If I look at the role assignments tab, this is where I inherited the role. Notice that it's at the DB servers level. So I will only be able to perform the functions that are defined for me in the systems that belong to the DB servers computer role. Looking at role definitions, that allows me to see what I showed you at the beginning, that the role is available at any time, is set up to be audited as possible, and it's remote allowed. If I look at the rights, notice that I have several applications, one of them being SQL Server DBA. That allows me to launch SQL Server Configuration Manager and SQL Server Management. I also have service control for SQL Server Service. But if I look at each command, I'm using the sc.exe to query, start, and stop the service. And all of those are going to be run as a built-in administrator. If I look at the SQL Server one, I did choose to use a service account, but the end user does not need to know the service account's password, which mitigates the problem of a poorly implemented execution. So let's take it for a ride. SQL Server Manager, for example. If I were to run this application normally and I want to connect locally, I'm going to get access denied. What I need to do in the case of a GUI application is to right-click, run it as a role, pick the proper role, and press OK. That's going to allow me to be able to log in and perform the functions that I need to log in. Notice something really important here. If I look at the Authorization Center, the Auditing tab says currently auditing. That means that everything I'm doing is being audited. Let's take a look at a command application. The SC, or Service Control, is an application on Windows that allows you to perform the same functions that you would do with the Services Microsoft Management Console. So I can take a look at the status. I actually pre-created shortcuts, and notice that the SQL Server service is running. If I were to want to run it, remember, I'm not a member of the local administrators. If I were to run this application and then I want to execute it, I'm going to get error 5, access denied. I need to elevate, right? And as I elevate, I'll be able to execute. That went really fast. But if I look at the status of the service again, notice that it said stopped. Same thing for the start, right? if I go ahead and try to start the service normally, as if I was person when I get access denied, all I need to do is just run it as a role. And the reason why you should use shortcuts is because you guys don't want to see me typing. You just don't know how bad I typed. So, you know, in this case, you can actually see everything in action and notice that it's back and running. So, you know, in summary, Centrify provides you with a privilege elevation mechanism that allows you to enforce true role-based access controls in an end-to-end fashion. Many customers and prospects have gone the way of having an intermediate system like a vault. Great solution. You still need it for routers, switches, to cycle the passwords. You know, it has its place in the enterprise. But when you're ready to increment your controls, when you're ready to have granular access and provide end-to-end capabilities, this is where typically, you know, Centrify excels. Now, and again, one of the things that I did not show you is, and you know, I should actually show you that, is that native login, right? So security operations requires the use of, you know, syslog or event log, because today your ArcSight, LogLogic, or Splunk are using those capabilities today. So when you elevate with Centrify, or you get access or whatnot, you will be able to see in the event log that everything is being registered. So that investment in security operations that has been done by your organization can continue to provide the requirements needed. So if I look at this event log entry, notice that I'm gonna have a Centrify here. It says, hey, you know, this guy was remotely successfully logged in, and that's my user. If I look at the privilege elevation events, notice that in here saying, hey, you know, the user was able to, in this case, start SQL Server as himself. Okay? But when logs are unable to provide us with the information that we need to be able to expand or augment that capability. This is where direct audit comes into play. You've seen this capability already on Unix, but the you know, what's really cool is having the ability to provide session capture and replay with the same solution across multiple platforms. And this is what you know, this provides. So if I take a look, and I can do the index command list, take a look at all the events, or I can just replay. And how cool is it that if something happens, maybe there's a bad change control, or maybe there's a suspicion of maybe a data breach, how easy it is to be able to reproduce what people are able to do. So if you look at it, we have the ability to limit access to systems based on business need to know. That is your best way to control access, by limiting access at the door. Once people are able to log in, they're able to perform them functions as wide as a sysadmin, but as narrow as I showed you with a DBA, right? And even if that fails, if you have maybe a threat agent that is an insider, or maybe you have your systems compromised, you're able to get a leg up on investigations by being able to replay what happens, just like a DVR, and being able to fast forward, rewind, and take a look at the events that you'd like to see. I hope you enjoyed this series, and we're going to be augmenting this. A lot of great capabilities are coming, including two-factor authentication, and keep tuned.